My daughter raised her glass, smiled wide, and said, "I don't like you, Dad." Laughter strangled midair. Forks froze. Even the children stared at their plates. She tonged a burnt sausage onto mine. The metal hissed like cruel applause. No one spoke for me. A cousin slid an envelope beneath my ribs, my name missing from the title. And I knew someone had filled her ears with poison. But why here in front of everyone? Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from right now. The sun hit my coffee just right, but my hands trembled anyway. The mug felt heavier today, as if it carried more than caffeine. I stared out over the backyard, the grill cover still half off from yesterday's storm of meat, smoke, and silence. The same tongs she had used, the ones I'd passed down, like a family tradition, hung from the patio hook, rusted and crooked, one arm bent, like a broken promise. The morning breeze didn't feel like peace anymore. It felt like warning. Inside, the house had that hollow ring only silence could give. No pans clinking, no daughter humming her mother's favorite radio tune, no grandchildren thudding across the hallway in messy socks. Just the sound of a refrigerator humming and the faint ticking of a wall clock that hadn't chimed in months. I sipped slowly, hoping the warmth would reach my chest. It didn't. She came into the kitchen but didn't look at me. Walked straight to the fridge, pulled out oat milk and a protein bar, then turned to leave. No good morning, no glance, not even a sigh. "You heading out?" I asked. Voice even. She paused, hand on the door, then without turning replied, "I've got errands. You probably wouldn't understand." Not errands, not a plan, not even a lie crafted to protect my feelings. Just that dry, casual swipe across my dignity. I let the silence fill the room again, like smoke refusing to clear. She left. The door clicked in a way that wasn't loud, but final. I stood, stretched my back with the same stiffness I'd carried since the funeral, and walked to the table where the envelope still, Saturday. Thick cream stock paper, a little folded at the corner now. I hadn't opened it. Couldn't. Not yet. Instead, I walked out to the patio. The grill stood like a monument from better days, blackened, proud, and cold. I'd grilled ribs here when she won her middle school science fair, burgers when her mother beat cancer the first time, corn cobs when her now husband first showed up, hands too soft for yard work. I reached out to touch the tongs. The metal was cold. The bend in the handle hadn't happened by accident. It looked intentional, like someone had gripped too tight, or slammed it down. Who breaks a tradition like that? My wife used to say the tongs were a man's handshake in summer, silent, but full of meaning. "You feed people. You lead people," she'd laugh. I held them up to the morning light. One prong glinted like it still had something to say. The other was darkened with yesterday's shame. In the distance, a dog barked. Somewhere across the street, someone mowed their lawn. Life moved. But mine stayed here, inside a barbecue memory and a daughter's dismissal. Then came the sound. Not loud, but distinct. A rustle. A single bump. From the hallway. I stepped back in, mug now lukewarm in my hand. The house was still. I walked down the corridor slowly, each floorboard creaking like it was choosing sides. Guest room, untouched. Office, closed, locked. Master bedroom, quiet. But when I reached the garage door, I saw it just for a second. The pull-down cord swinging, like it had just been released. I hadn't been in the garage in over a week. I opened it. Nothing missing. Nothing obvious. Except the fuse box was slightly ajar, and the motion sensor light was off. I stood there, staring at the quiet tools on the shelves. The decades of screws, washers, wooden planks all lined up like soldiers in retreat. Maybe it was just wind. Maybe she'd been storing something. Maybe I was imagining it. But I hadn't imagined the missing ladder. The one I always kept hanging by the door. It was gone. I turned slowly, back toward the kitchen, toward the tongs, toward the envelope. That envelope hadn't just arrived by mistake. Someone had timed it. Someone had known I'd be too shocked to open it. I returned to the table, sat down, and held the sealed envelope with both hands. My fingers trembled again. This time, not from age or coffee. Something else was moving through my home, unseen but real. And for the first time since Martha's funeral, I whispered to no one, "What are they planning?" The ladder was gone, the fuse box open, and still no one had knocked. She served 3 plates that evening, but mine never came. I watched from the head of the table, the same seat I'd occupied for 20 years, as my daughter set down dinner in front of her husband and 2 kids. Chicken breast, steamed rice, roasted zucchini, all hot, all fresh. She didn't even look my way. The tongs weren't in the kitchen anymore. I'd cleaned and rehung them that morning, but they were gone again, replaced by some silicone thing that looked like it belonged in a dorm room, not the home I built with calloused hands and second mortgages. I cleared my throat lightly. "Did you forget one?" Daughter glanced up. A flicker in her eye. "Was it guilt?" "There's leftovers in the fridge," she said flatly. Her husband chuckled. "Gotta teach old dogs to fetch their own dinner." That line, that laugh, it landed like a slap. My grandson looked up, confused. My granddaughter poked at her food, sensing tension, but not knowing why. "I didn't realize asking for a plate meant asking for a war," I said, slowly rising. My daughter shrugged. "You're used to having control. We're just rebalancing the house." Rebalancing. Like dignity was a spreadsheet she could tweak. "Rebecca," I said gently, "I paid for this roof. I grilled every meal under it. I buried your mother 6 feet under it after she begged me to keep it for the family." Her husband interrupted. "Well, we are family, just not your version of it." Before I could reply, there was a knock at the back door. Our neighbor, Earl, the one who lent us tools during summer projects, and who always brought beer to barbecues. Earl stepped in, baseball cap in hand. "Hey, just returning your ratchet. Saw your truck out front. Everything okay in here?" He looked around. Silence. My daughter stiffened. Son-in-law froze mid-bite. The kids stared at their mashed carrots like they might hold answers. "We're just having a family conversation," she said. Earl looked at me, then at the untouched place at the table. "Well, all right, I'll get going." He handed me the ratchet quietly. Our fingers touched for a second longer than they needed to. As he walked out, he didn't say goodbye to anyone else. I sat down, not at the table, but on the bench near the window. I watched the steam rise from their plates. My stomach was silent, but my heart beat, like it knew something was shifting, cracking, coming loose. I noticed something then. The framed photo that once hung above the mantel our family barbecue 10 years ago was gone, replaced with a generic landscape painting. "You took down Mom's picture?" I asked. Rebecca didn't flinch. "It was dusty. We're redecorating." "Without asking?" Her husband scoffed. "You're acting like this is still your house." I looked at her. Really looked. The soft edges of the girl I raised were hardened now by what I didn't know. But whatever warmth she'd once shown me, it had cooled. "You're right," I said. "I'm acting like I still belong." She didn't respond. That was the real answer. The rest of dinner passed in silence. I ate microwaved leftovers in the kitchen corner after they'd cleared the table. The dishwasher hummed louder than usual, or maybe it was just the blood in my ears. Later that night, I found the barbecue tongs in the garage, buried beneath a bag of trash, sticky with sauce, bent slightly more than before. They hadn't even bothered to rinse them. I cleaned them again, slowly, with care. Symbol didn't have to mean expensive. It had to mean earned. That night, as I sat alone on the porch, Earl called. His voice was low. "William, everything all right back there?" He didn't call me Bill like the others. Always, William, respectful. "I think they want me gone," I said. He was quiet for a beat. "You think? Or you know?" I looked inside the house through the window. My grandson was watching TV on a tablet. My son-in-law scrolled his phone. Rebecca sat at the table with a pen, writing something on a clipboard. "I know," I whispered. And I realized it wasn't just tension, it was preparation. They were drawing lines. I just hadn't seen the chalk yet. The signature wasn't mine, but the name was. Across the thick glass of the bank manager's desk, the co-ownership form sat like a loaded weapon. My full name typed clean across the top, but the scrawl at the bottom didn't match the way my hand curved. It was a forgery in style, if not in ink. "Are you sure you didn't sign this, Mr. Callahan?" the manager asked, cautious, respectful. "I'd remember giving away half my house," I replied. The man nodded. "It was filed online, digital consent attached to a shared email." I never shared email, not even with my late wife. And yet, the form had been processed. The system marked it verified. My name was already in their database with a joint owner beside it, Rebecca Morgan. I left the bank colder than when I entered. The Arizona sun couldn't reach the space between my ribs. At home, I found her in the dining room, reorganizing a drawer that didn't need reorganizing. "Did you open a joint deed with my name on it?" I asked. She didn't look up. "We needed some flexibility, just in case anything happens." "You mean like trust being destroyed?" Her hand paused over a stack of envelopes. Her voice dropped. "You were sick last year, Dad. You're getting older. We were thinking ahead." "We?" I echoed. "Or he?" She finally looked at me, and for a moment, I saw a flash of guilt, a flicker, but it passed like a cloud over a dying fire. "I'm not trying to take anything from you," she said. We're building our future, too." I walked to the garage. I didn't slam the door. I didn't say another word, but I needed space. And there they were, the BBQ tongs, propped oddly atop the recycling bin. Not in a drawer, not in their hook, as if waiting to be discarded. One prong had snapped. I held them in my hand, letting the broken edge dig into my palm. These tongs had flipped burgers for neighbors, turned ribs for cousins, carried salmon for anniversaries. They'd been passed from my wife's hands to mine the day she finished chemo. And now, broken. I didn't throw them away. Instead, I placed them on the workbench, cleaned them, sat them next to a photograph of my wife, one I kept taped to the back wall of the garage cabinet. She had always said, "You can lose your tools, but don't lose your touch." The next morning, Rebecca left a folder by the coffee pot. It had the mortgage statement inside. A note scribbled on top. "We need you to sign. This helps us refinance. Faster approval. No, please. No discussion. No explanation. Just pressure." That evening, her husband waited for me at the grill like he owned it. He was flipping steaks, badly burning one side, undercooking the other. I stood beside him, quiet, watching. "You always cook these too long," he said, not turning. "I'm trying something new." I didn't respond. He continued, "Once the refi's through, we'll get a smoker. Real heat. Proper stuff." "You sure you want to sign on that much heat?" I asked. He turned to look at me. "You worried about being replaced?" I smiled. "I'm worried about being erased." His grin faltered. Just a moment. From the window, I saw Rebecca watching. Her arms were crossed, her expression unreadable. She stepped out a moment later. "Dad, did you look at the documents I left?" I looked, and "I'm not signing anything until I understand everything." She glanced at her husband, then back to me. "This would really help us, Dad. Just think about it." "I have," I said, "and I will. But thinking isn't the same as agreeing." She didn't argue, just turned and walked back inside. That was her tell. She always walked away when she wasn't ready to confront her own conscience. Later that night, I saw her standing alone by the fire pit, holding the tongs. Not the broken pair. A new one, shiny, store-bought, red rubber handles. She didn't even look at the bench where the old one sat, bent but clean. She tossed the new pair into the flames, just stood there, watching the handles bubble and melt. She burned the new ones but never touched the old. And I knew then what they were planning hadn't finished. It had only begun. Smoke came from the backyard. But no one was grilling. The air was thick, not with the smell of meat or mesquite wood, but with something fouler, bitter, like burning ink and lies. I stepped out quickly, still in my socks. The grass poked at my feet. Heat curled from the old metal fire pit like breath from a cornered animal. My son-in-law stood over the flames, poker in hand. A pile of shredded envelopes and half-burnt documents crackled inside. I recognized some of the torn headers, bank statements, insurance copies, old tax papers. "What the hell are you doing?" I asked. He didn't turn. "Cleaning clutter. Just old crap lying around." "Don't worry," I double-checked. I stepped closer. A corner of one envelope curled at the edge of the flame. It had my wife's handwriting on it. An insurance note. A post-it that read, "Safe file, do not throw." I grabbed the poker from his hand, shoved the burning pile apart. It was too late. Most were ash already. Gone. "You have no right to burn these," I said. He stepped back, lifted his hands. I said I double-checked. Thought they were junk. "You thought wrong." He didn't apologize. Just smirked like I was the child and he was the parent. Inside the house, the window blinds shifted. I saw Rebecca watching. Her face, half-shadowed, unmoved. "Did you tell her what you burned?" I asked. "Why would I? It's just paperwork. You got the originals, right?" I didn't answer. Because I didn't know anymore. That night, I sat in the garage, facing the bench. The broken tongs rested on a towel, half-gleaming, half-charred. I picked them up, turned them slowly in my hands. The jagged end still had grease on it. Old seasoning. Like the past refusing to be cleaned off. I placed them beside Martha's photo again, whispered, "They're not just tossing our legacy, they're torching it." Then I went inside and reached for the envelope I'd left unopened. The one from the barbecue. I slid a knife through the seal. Inside, an unsigned agreement. A refinancing document listing the house as joint collateral for a $240,000 loan. My name was listed as silent owner. The co-signature space, already filled. Rebecca's handwriting. And underneath hers, a signature that looked like mine but tighter, straighter, like someone had practiced it. I turned the page. Stapled behind it was a note. Bank letterhead. Approval pending, one final confirmation, my direct call. I picked up the phone and dialed the number listed. "Mortgage processing. This is Denise." I gave her the file number. After a few checks, she returned. "Yes, Mr. Callahan. This was initiated by Rebecca Morgan and her spouse. We're just waiting on the second verification." "I never authorized it," I said. A pause. "Oh, well, there is an audio clip attached. Would you like to hear the confirmation voice note?" I said yes. It played through, and my stomach dropped. It wasn't my voice. It was close. The cadence, the tone, but not mine. I hung up. Silence filled the room. Then footsteps approached. Light ones. "My daughter." "Dad?" she said at the doorway. "You didn't eat dinner. We saved you some soup. Did you ask me to sign anything lately?" I asked, without turning. Pause. "The refinance?" "No, before that. Did you give anyone permission to speak for me?" Another pause. No. I mean, I thought we were on the same page." "Rebecca," I said, turning now, "did you record my voice for anything?" She blinked, hesitated, then shook her head. "Of course not. She wasn't a good liar. Not to me." I said nothing more. Just walked past her, back to the garage. I placed the envelope beside the tongs, and I made a decision. They thought I'd react with yelling, that I'd slam doors, curse, demand. But I'd learned something long ago from grilling, from marriage, from life. You don't fight fire with noise. You smother it, quietly, until there's nothing left but cold ash and regret. They thought I would bend. Instead, I smiled and reached for my suitcase. The motel curtains were thin, but the silence behind them was thick. They fluttered every time the AC rattled, casting flickers of weak light over the peeling wallpaper and the cracked linoleum tiles. I hadn't stayed in a place like this since 1987, when the roof caved in on our first house. But back then, Martha was beside me, hair tied up in a towel, laughing at the stain on the ceiling. Now it was just me. One duffel bag, one photo, one pair of broken barbecue tongs wrapped in a towel like a wound that refused to close. I'd left before sunrise, didn't leave a note, didn't take the truck. Just walked 2 blocks to Earl's driveway, borrowed his second-hand Honda with a spare key he'd always kept in a fake rock by the porch. He didn't ask questions, just said, "Be safe, William," and patted my shoulder. I used to hate that name. William felt too formal, too distant. Now it sounded like armor. Around noon, my phone vibrated with a message from a number I didn't recognize. "William Callahan, your power of attorney documents are incomplete. Kindly re-verify for your refinance application to continue." I stared at it. Read it twice. They were still trying. I called my lawyer, Richard Adams, a quiet, sharp man I hadn't needed in years. He answered on the second ring. "Callahan? That you? It Island. And I think I need you more than ever." Over the next 15 minutes, I walked him through every piece. The envelope at the barbecue, the forged signature, the voice recording, the attempted refinance, and the text this morning. He exhaled sharply. "They're setting you up, William." Quietly. "No full strike, just drip by drip until you drown." "What are my options?" "We file a stop order on any legal movement tied to your property. Then we challenge the voice confirmation. If it's AI, we'll catch it. If it's spliced, even better. And I'll need you to sign a withdrawal from all joint legal entitlements." I already packed a pen. That afternoon, I went to his office. Quiet building, strip mall side lot. The receptionist looked like she ran half the county's divorces just by tone alone. I signed the paperwork. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't emotional. But every stroke of that pen felt like reclaiming breath. Then came the call from Pastor Gibbons. "William, I've heard rumors. Earl mentioned you moved out?" "I did." Silence. "I'm not asking you to explain," he said, voice gentle. "Just wanted to say you're not alone. If this gets out, if it goes beyond whispers, I'll stand by you." "Thank you, Pastor. But you should know," he added, "people are already talking, and not kindly, about your daughter." He didn't say it with glee, just sadness. "Why?" "Someone at the bank overheard something. About signatures. About a cover-up." "Good." He paused. "Good? Let them talk." I ended the call, then pulled the tongs from the duffel. The towel was stained with grease again. Not fresh, but it had seeped through. It carried the scent of old meat and smoke and betrayal. And strangely, comfort. I set them beside the motel lamp, watched the light curve over the broken prong like a scar. That night, I didn't sleep much. At around 3 a.m., I walked out to the vending machine and passed a man I didn't recognize, a guy in a ball cap, sitting in a truck that didn't belong to the lot. He didn't move, just watched. The next morning, the front desk clerk handed me a message. No envelope. Just a torn piece of notebook paper with 3 words. "They know now." The motel was quiet. But the war had already reached my door. The hold music on the bank call never sounded sweeter. A soft jazz loop played on repeat as I stood barefoot on the motel carpet. Paperwork spread out across the tiny desk like a general's map. My pen rested between my fingers, not shaking anymore, but steady, focused. On the screen, accounts, transfers, authorizations, all roads that had once flowed into a home I thought was mine, and hearts I thought were loyal. I started where it hurt most. Auto payments, mortgage transfer, canceled. Joint grocery card, suspended. Streaming, utilities, school lunches, all halted. Each click felt like peeling off a leech. For the first time in decades, the money I'd earned, saved, sacrificed was staying put. Then came the car insurance. I removed their names from my multi-vehicle discount. A small thing, but it would sting. Then the biggest one, college fund savings. I didn't empty it. I simply locked it behind a trustee clause that required a verified court order to access, one that couldn't be bypassed with forged signatures or faked voices. Click. Done. By noon, their world would change. Not with a bang, but with bounced bills and blinking declined cards. I stared at the final confirmation screen. It asked, "Are you sure you want to proceed?" I clicked yes, then closed the laptop. Slowly. The motel smelled like burnt wires and pine-scented disinfectant, but for the first time since I left, I could breathe. I took out the towel-wrapped tongs and set them on the desk. One prong still gleamed. The other remained blackened. Martha once told me, "Every fire leaves a scar, but the clean side shows who survived it." They weren't just broken. They were proof I could still hold on to something without letting go of myself. The motel phone rang. I let it ring 4 times before answering. "William Callahan?" "Yes. This is Marcy from Pinnacle Banking. We received authorization this morning to freeze all secondary account links. Just confirming that was you?" It was. A pause. "Understood. Also, there's been multiple failed login attempts from a different IP in your name." "Let them try," I said. I hung up. 10 minutes later, my cell phone vibrated. Voicemail. "Rebecca." I hit play. "Dad? Something's wrong with the mortgage. The payment bounced. I'm trying to figure it out, but can you call me? Please?" I didn't. I slid the phone under a pillow and left it there. Instead, I went for a walk. 2 blocks. Past a laundromat, a shuttered diner, and a mailbox half full with catalogs no one reads. I saw a father pushing his daughter in a stroller across the street. Young, hopeful, not yet burned. And I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks, clarity. By the time I got back to the motel, another voicemail waited. This time, her husband. "What the hell did you do, old man? Our cards are dead. Everything's locked. You think this proves something? You're just bitter. You'll regret this." I didn't. Instead, I made one last call. "Hello. This is Cassandra with Patriot Legal Aid. I need a will update," I said. I heard typing. "Name? William Callahan. And what would you like to revise?" "Start a new one. Fresh. Full rewrite." Pause. "You sure?" "Yes." "Children?" "Excluded for now. I'll explain in person." "Symbolic requests?" I looked at the tongs on the desk. "Yes," I said. "Include 1 item for the estate inventory. A pair of broken barbecue tongs." Noted. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because of fear, but because I was counting hours, heartbeats, betrayals. By morning, their world would bleed, and for once, I wouldn't be the one left cleaning the fire pit. If your kids betrayed you like this, would you forgive or fight? Let me know in the comments. Their fridge was full, but their dinner table stayed empty. I knew that because Earl told me. He'd seen Rebecca at the grocery store that morning, basket loaded, card declined. She left with nothing but a red face, and her son tugging on her sleeve, asking why they didn't get the cereal with the tiger on the box. I sat in my motel room with a cup of bad coffee, watching the sun cut harsh lines through the blinds. My phone buzzed. Again. Missed call 6. Rebecca. Voicemail 2. Unknown. Text message. "Call us, please." I didn't touch it. Instead, I looked at the tongs. Still wrapped, still sharp. I'd started placing them beside the motel coffee maker each morning, like a ritual, like a shield. Voicemail again. I clicked play. Rebecca's voice cracked at the edges. "Dad," the insurance called. "They say the car's not covered anymore, and our power bill bounced. I don't know what's going on. Did you do something? Just call me." Pause. Then again. "Please." I poured more coffee. They hadn't felt cold in years. Now they were learning the weather. That afternoon, I walked to the diner 2 blocks down. The kind with cracked leather booths and the same waitress who'd been there since Clinton. Sally nodded as I Saturday. Coffee? Please. She poured it, leaned in slightly. I saw your daughter yesterday. She didn't look so good. I said nothing. She kept going. Heard from some of the bank girls. Things are falling apart. People are talking. Not your fault. Just seems like she bit the hand that fed her. The words didn't sting. They floated. Distant. I didn't feed her to be worshipped, I said. Just not forgotten. Sally nodded slowly. Well, she's remembered now, just not how she planned. As I left the diner, my phone buzzed again. Voicemail. This time her husband. This isn't a game, you bitter old man. You made your point. Now fix it. Or I swear, we'll come down there and finish this. Threats. Interesting. I played it again. I walked back to the motel. The air felt heavier. The wind sharp. Inside, I grabbed the motel notepad and wrote down 3 lines. 1. Compile voicemail threats. 2. Confirm legal tape admissibility. 3. Buy new lock for truck. Then I crossed out the last one, because I didn't need the truck. They'd find me either way. Around dusk, I stood by the window. Shadows lengthened across the parking lot. A silver sedan rolled by. Slow, then stopped 2 spaces down. My pulse didn't rise. I watched the silhouette inside. A man. Large. Still. 10 minutes. Then gone. Testing the waters. They were losing control. And that made them dangerous. Later that night, another voicemail. Rebecca again. This one different. Dad, I found the tongs. The old ones. I don't know why you took them, but they're in my head now. Every time I see the grill, I remember your hands. How you used to flip things twice, never 3. How you used to say, meat talks, if you listen long enough. She paused. I don't know what happened. I just want things to go back. I didn't call back, because nothing goes back. The next morning, I stepped outside for fresh air, and found a note taped to the motel door. Folded, handwritten. 3 words. We're coming tonight. The table was empty. But the fight, they were bringing it full. The motel lobby had 1 witness, and that was enough. A teenage girl behind the counter, scrolling her phone with one hand, the other wrapped around a styrofoam cup of soda. She barely looked up when the glass doors burst open. But I did. Rebecca stormed in first. Hair messy, eyes red. A folder clenched in her hand so tight it looked like part of her skin. Her husband followed 2 steps behind. Jaw locked, fists tight. I didn't move. They spotted me sitting by the vending machine. Dad! She snapped, loud. Too loud. The girl at the counter finally looked up. I stayed seated, calm, collected. I had the tongs in my duffel next to me, wrapped but close. You're ruining everything, Rebecca said, coming closer. We have no access to anything. Mortgage, insurance, school accounts, nothing. What are you doing? Her husband stepped forward, voice sharp. We gave you a home, old man. A place to grow old in. And you spit in our faces. I built that house, I said. Brick by damn brick. Don't talk to me about gifts. You're bitter, he hissed. That's all this island, some ego trip. I looked at Rebecca. Do you believe that? She hesitated, then said quieter, You could have talked to me. You could have stopped lying, I replied. Lying? She gasped. What are you? I pulled a paper from my pocket, held it up. Bank loan request. $240,000. Co-signed under my name. Fake voice confirmation attached. Forgery. Her lips parted. Eyes darted to her husband. He didn't blink. You're bluffing, he said. You can't prove that. Already have. And the mortgage company knows it. Silence fell for half a second. Then Rebecca whispered, You told me it was a joint request. That he asked you. You said. He agreed. Her husband turned, snarled. I told you I had it handled. You didn't need to get involved. You lied to me, she said, stunned. You lied about everything. And what the hell do you think he's doing? He snapped, pointing at me. He's making you choose, Rebecca. Him or us. I stood. Slowly. No, I said. I'm not asking her to choose. I'm just done being robbed by people who use my last name like it's a debit card. He lunged. I didn't flinch. The girl at the counter stood up quickly. Sir, if you touch him, I'm calling the cops. He froze. Rebecca grabbed his arm. Stop it. Just stop it. He jerked free. He's lying. He's senile. You've seen it. You forged a signature, she said quietly, on our house, and you let him poison you. No, she said. You did. I watched it unravel in real time, her face crumbling, his rage boiling, and then he said it. This isn't over, old man. You think you've won, but I've got friends, lawyers, debt collectors. You'll see. Killer line. I stepped closer, looked him dead in the eye. You served me shame on my own grill. Now taste what you cooked. He growled, turned, stormed out the door, shattering the silence with his exit. Rebecca stayed behind, breathing hard. The girl behind the counter handed her a bottle of water. No one spoke for a moment. Rebecca turned to me. What happens now? She asked. I don't know, I said. That depends on whether you keep lying to me or to yourself. She opened her mouth, closed it, then pulled something from her purse. The BBQ tongs, the broken ones, wrapped in the towel I'd used. I found these, she said. Didn't know why you took them, but now I get it. No, I said, gently taking them back. You don't, but maybe one day. She looked down, nodded once, then left. I stood there, alone in the lobby, tongs in hand. The motel girl leaned over the counter. That was intense. Family, I said, pocketing the towel again. She nodded. You want me to file a disturbance report? No, not yet. Okay, she said. But if they come back, they won't. I walked outside into the evening heat. The sky was turning red, like something had burned in the clouds. I didn't feel peace, but I felt something close, control. As they drove away, I watched the flames in the sky and knew this war had just begun its second chapter. Some men fight with fists. I used a folder. It sat on the table in front of attorney Richard Adams. Thick, fastened, color-coded. Inside, everything they thought I wouldn't keep. Digital logs, forged signature comparisons, screenshots of bank approvals, AI voice print analysis, and a photograph of the broken barbecue tongs. Richard didn't ask why the tongs were there. He just glanced at them and said, You want war? No, I said. I want to be left alone. This is the price of that. He nodded, then tapped the folder twice with a short pen. We'll start with power of attorney revocation, then move to property hold. I'll file for financial fraud review with the State Bank Commission, and if you're up for it, we can report the forgery. I'm up for all of it. He smiled slightly. Then it's not war. It's maintenance. He slid the folder toward his assistant. Dawn, he said, you're going to be busy. She nodded without blinking. Good. By the afternoon, 3 things had happened. A certified cease and desist had been sent to Rebecca and her husband, blocking them from any account access tied to my name. A fraud review had been opened with a state investigator, and my house had a lien protection motion placed on it. No refinance, no sale, no legal movement without my direct consent and signature on paper, in person. The same hand that once handed over tongs now handed over papers. The same hand that once passed ribs across a table now passed sealed envelopes to FedEx clerks. That night, I slept better. No motel noise, no voicemail pings, just silence. I dreamed of my wife for the first time in months. She was sitting on the porch, sipping iced tea. The grill was going. My tongs were in her lap. The broken edge gleamed silver in the sunset. She looked up at me and said, Good. Now finish it. I woke up with tears on my face, and no shame for them. By morning, Richard called me back. They responded, he said. Who? Your daughter's husband. Called my office screaming. Said we're destroying his family. I said nothing. He threatened court, Richard added. I told him to try. And Rebecca? A pause. No word. Not yet. I hung up and walked down to the motel lobby. The girl behind the counter, same as last time, handed me a sealed manila envelope. This came for you early. Priority. Inside, a formal response letter from their lawyer. It was panicked, sloppy, claimed misunderstanding, family disputes, financial confusion. But buried in the 5th paragraph was an offer. If Mr. Callahan reverses the cease and desist and reinstates co-ownership, all internal matters will be dropped. I laughed once. Sharp, cold. They were buckling. Instead of replying, I made another stop police station. Not to press charges, yet, but to file a formal statement, notarized, with attached documents for record, insurance, bank logs, the voice sample forensic breakdown. The officer read it silently, then asked, You want to press forgery? Not yet. You want a restraining order? If he shows up again, yes. The officer raised a brow. Want us to do a drive-by on the house? Check if they're making trouble? No, I said. That house is still mine. If they want to trespass, they'll learn. On the way out, I stopped by the bulletin board. Posted a flyer for a veterans support barbecue I used to run. I hadn't hosted it in years, but now, maybe it was time. Back at the motel, I opened my duffel. The tongs sat inside. Tucked in clean cloth, I laid them on the desk. They weren't shiny. They weren't new, but they were still mine. By the time they read the legal papers, I was already 3 steps ahead, with a grill full of coals and my name back in my own hand. The lie didn't collapse, it crumbled, piece by piece, in public. It started with a foreclosure notice taped to their front door. Not from the bank, not yet, but from a private lender I didn't know they were entangled with. Earl sent me the photo. Your house has company, he texted. Some repo man in a windbreaker was circling their cars this morning. Then came the call from Sally at the diner. Your son-in-law came in today, sat at the counter, tried to pay with 3 cards. All declined. She paused. He left without ordering. That afternoon, I walked downtown. Wore my old denim jacket, hat pulled low. People didn't recognize me right away, but when they did, the whispers started. Not about me. About them. I heard he tried to fake a loan. Didn't he put his wife's name on something illegal? Poor Rebecca. I thought she was smarter than that. I didn't gloat. But I didn't stop walking either. By the time I reached the hardware store, 2 people had already asked if I was doing okay. Not out of pity, but quiet respect. The cashier rang up my replacement grill rack. You fixing it up again? He asked. Just cleaning out the fire pit, I replied. That evening, I got another voicemail. Rebecca, Dad, they sent a letter to the school. We're being audited. Our credit score just dropped 50 points overnight. I don't know how much longer we can hold things together. She paused. He's blaming you, but I'm starting to think maybe it's him who broke it. The next morning, Richard sent me an email. Their lawyer requested a settlement. No court, quiet closure, but they want forgiveness of all financial retractions in exchange. I laughed. Forgiveness? I replied, not yet. At noon, I returned to the house. First time in weeks. The driveway was cracked. The flowers Martha planted were overgrown. The grill sat uncovered, rain-pitted, rust along the handles. I unlocked the garage and stepped inside. Dust, boxes, silence. But on the wall, still taped gently, Martha's photograph, and beneath it on the bench sat the tongs. The broken ones, right where I left them. I picked them up, turned them slowly in my hand. Behind me, I heard a car pull in. Rebecca, alone. She stepped out slowly. No yelling this time. No folder. No husband. Just her. Dad? She said. Almost like it used to sound. I didn't move. I didn't know about the second loan, she said. I didn't know he took your voice and edited it. I didn't know he lied. You knew he was greedy, I said. And you stayed quiet. I thought he was protecting us. I thought maybe you were done fighting. I was never done, I said. Just tired. She stepped closer. They're laughing at us now. People who used to hug me after church, they don't even wave. They're not laughing, I said. They're learning. She blinked. Are you going to destroy us? No, I said. You're doing that yourselves. She wiped her eyes. I miss Mom, she whispered. I handed her the tongs. These are all that's left, I said. Not the house, not the money, this. She held them carefully. The broken end. The grease still faint in the grooves. I don't deserve these. No, I agreed. You don't. But you needed to touch them. She nodded. I'll leave now, she said. You can call the lawyer when you're ready. I already did, I replied. She looked up. He's waiting for your signature. Then she walked away. Didn't beg. Didn't rage. Just left. And I sat down on the bench beside my wife's photo, holding the tongs, listening to the sound of a house breathing again. They came for a fortune. All they got was smoke and silence. I didn't plan to speak that Sunday. But silence can become a sin too. I arrived at church 10 minutes before the service started, parked at the far end of the gravel lot, walked in through the side doors, head down, hat off. Rebecca was already inside, second row, alone. Her husband wasn't there. She didn't look back when I entered, but she knew I was there. Her shoulders stiffened, her hands gripped the hem of her dress like it might float away without permission. Pastor Gibbons stood at the pulpit, flipping through his notes. He looked up as I passed the first pew, paused, then gave a small nod. I sat near the back, third bench from the rear, left side. The same spot Martha and I used to sit in, far enough to watch without being watched, close enough to leave without making a scene. The choir sang 2 hymns. Then Pastor Gibbons cleared his throat. Before I begin the sermon, he said, we have a visitor, someone this congregation knows well, and someone who's asked for a brief word. The room turned like a tide. I stood. Every step down the aisle echoed more than the last. Rebecca didn't look up, not even when I stopped 2 feet from where she Saturday. At the pulpit, I turned. Slowly. Faces I'd seen for decades. Some nodding, some avoiding my eyes. I cleared my throat. My name is William Callahan. Most of you know me. Some of you helped pour the foundation for my house. Some of you ate ribs off my grill. Some of you watched my daughter grow up beside your own. Silence. She's still your neighbor, I continued. Still a mother? Still someone's wife? Rebecca's head dipped lower, but I won't lie to you. She tried to steal from me, and the man she married helped her do it. Gasps. Shifting feet. I'm not here to ask for pity, I said, or vengeance, or applause. I reached into my coat, pulled out the BBQ tongs, held them up. These were the first gift I ever received from Martha, my wife, your friend. They cooked every meal we served after funerals, weddings, birthdays, bad news. They're not valuable. I opened the tongs, closed them. The broken prong hung loose, bent slightly. But they're mine, and like everything else I built, I don't hand them over to people who lie. I placed the tongs on the pulpit, gently. Let this be my testimony. No one, no matter how close, how blood-bound, how tearful, has the right to destroy what you built just because they want to skip the hard part. Silence again. No coughs, no shifting. Then, clapping. Soft. From the back. It grew, one by one, until the whole room was applauding. Even those who didn't like me respected what I said. I stepped down, didn't wait for Pastor Gibbons to return, just walked past Rebecca. As I did, she whispered so faint only I could hear it. I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't stop walking. The sun hit my face as I stepped outside, and for once it didn't burn. It warmed. The tongs stayed behind, still broken. But they didn't belong in my coat anymore. They belonged up there, where truth was spoken. Forgiveness is earned in fire, and I'd only just begun lighting matches. The key hadn't turned in 15 years, but the click sounded like thunder. The safe was in the back of my old shop, hidden behind Martha's gardening bins, under a shelf we once used for canning supplies. It wasn't much to look at. Rusted dial, chipped paint, thick with dust. But what it held could rewrite futures. I knelt slowly, entered the code, 4178. Martha's birthday. The door groaned open. Inside, a stack of folders, a will, a deed, and a sealed letter she wrote a week before her last breath. I read it again. Same sentence I'd never forget. If they ever make you choose between being their father and being their fool, choose your name. That morning, I drove to Richard's office, dropped everything on his desk, sat without a word. He opened the file. Read the updated will. Eyes wide. You sure? Every name removed, I said. Everyone who tried to bury mine. He turned to the second page. And this? He asked, tapping the last clause. That's where the tongs go. He laughed once. Sharp. You're serious? Dead serious. Richard read the clause out loud. The sole symbolic heirloom of the Callahan estate, one pair of bent barbecue tongs, will be granted to the veterans of Creekside Shelter for display and safekeeping. He looked up. You're leaving them the story. I'm giving them the fire. We filed everything that day. Final. Notarized. Witnessed. Signed in ink. My house, when sold, would benefit 3 things: the local Veterans Center, a scholarship for blue-collar students, and the old church's roof repair. Nothing for Rebecca, nothing for her husband, nothing for those who tried to eat without setting the table. That evening, I called her. First time I dialed her number in weeks. She answered on the second ring. Dad? I changed the will. A long silence. I figured you would, she whispered. You won't be able to reverse it. I'm not asking you to. Another silence. Then she said, Did you really give away the tongs? They were never yours. I know, she said. I just hoped someday they would be. They are, I said. Just not in the way you wanted. She didn't cry, but her voice broke. Will you ever forgive me? I don't know, I said, but I've already outlived the worst of it. I hung up, drove that night to the shelter. The veterans sat on the back porch, folding flags, telling stories over metal chairs and lukewarm coffee. I placed the tongs in a shadow box. Cleaned, labeled, donated by William Callahan. Used to serve ribs, silence, and second chances. The director, an old friend of mine from Nam, saluted without smiling. They'll hang here, he said, right above the pit. Good, I said. That's where they belong. He handed me a lighter. You lighting tonight? I took it, nodded. We built the fire together. No ceremony. No big speech. Just 2 old men throwing coals, setting meat, waiting on heat. The wind carried smoke east toward town. Let them smell the fire. Let them wonder if the grill's still hot, without ever being invited to the table again. She didn't knock. She just stood there like the wind had carried her back. I saw her through the window, Rebecca, standing on the porch steps, arms crossed tight against her chest. Not the same daughter who once slammed doors and made threats. This one looked thinner, weathered. She'd been walking. Shoes dusty, hair loose. I opened the screen door slowly. We didn't speak right away. She glanced at the porch swing, the one I'd fixed last fall, Martha's favorite spot. Can I sit? She asked. You just did. She offered a tight, embarrassed smile and sat anyway. The air smelled like dry leaves and wood smoke. Somewhere far, someone else's grill was lighting. The scent used to make me hungry. Today, it made me tired. I heard about the will, she said. I didn't answer. They told me at the lawyer's office when I tried to get a copy. Still, I said nothing. I don't want the money, she said. I know you don't believe that. But I don't. I waited. She swallowed. But the house. No, I said. It's not for me, she rushed. It's for Liam. For my son. He loves that backyard. He thinks the roses still smell like Grandma. He cries when we drive past. I looked out toward the gravel road. Dry wind scattered twigs across the porch boards. You want to know why you don't get the house? I asked. She blinked. Yes. Because you didn't protect it. She looked down. You didn't protect the walls that raised you. You didn't protect the name on the mortgage. You didn't protect the man who built it, who grilled through grief, who stood by your bed through measles and monsters, who stayed when your mother died. Her hands began to tremble. And you didn't protect the story, I added. You sold it for lies and paperwork. She started to cry, but quietly. No drama this time. No outbursts. Just soft, tired tears. I miss her, she whispered. I do too. She wiped her eyes. I kept the broken prong. From the tongs. The one that bent. I looked at her. It reminded me of you, she said. Not in a bad way. In the way something keeps working, even when it's not whole. We sat in silence a while. The sky was starting to dim. I know I don't deserve it, she said. But can I at least show him the house? One more time? I stood slowly. Walked inside. Came back with a single item. The old Polaroid Martha had taped to the fridge. Liam, in the backyard, holding a sparkler. Smoke in the air. His mother behind him, laughing. I handed it to her. This is all you get, I said. She took it with both hands. Clutched it like glass. Thank you, she whispered. I nodded. Just once. And then, she did something I hadn't expected. She stepped down from the porch, walked across the yard, and sat at the edge of the fire pit. Where the grill used to be, she didn't cry anymore. She just sat there, hands folded, eyes closed, like she was listening for coals that hadn't burned in weeks. She didn't ask for the tongs, because now she understood why she never could. No invitation went out, but every chair was filled. The flyer I'd posted at the police station, the hardware store, and the diner was simple. One last cookout. No speeches, no sides, just coals and quiet. I hadn't hosted one since Martha died. But this time, it wasn't in my backyard. It was at the veterans' shelter, beneath the pavilion, where we once handed out plates and stories. The tongs hung just above the pit, mounted on polished oak, beneath a brass plaque. Used with honor, burned with betrayal, retired with dignity. People started arriving around 4. Earl came first. Then Sally from the diner, apron still on. The pastor showed up an hour later with lemon pie. Even some faces I didn't know. Strangers who'd heard about the man who served ribs and didn't serve fools. And then, quietly, Rebecca. She didn't come forward. She sat near the edge. Liam next to her. He waved. I waved back. No words. I wore my old apron, the one Martha stitched my name into, just above the pocket. Dad. No one asked what happened. They already knew. And those who didn't? They followed the silence like gospel. The coals burned slow, steady. Every 10 minutes or so, someone would approach the tongs, read the plaque, and nod like they'd just seen a headstone. Not for a person, for a truth, for something that got betrayed but not broken. Midway through the evening, Pastor Gibbons approached. Mind if I say a few words? I shook my head. He stepped forward, cleared his throat, and simply said, We don't grill like this anymore, and we don't raise men like this anymore. But maybe if we're lucky, some of us are still learning how. He sat back down. And that was enough. As the sun dropped, I looked across the tables. People fed. Faces relaxed. Peace. In the smoke. Rebecca never spoke. But before she left, she approached the tongs, stood beneath them for a long moment, then turned to me and mouthed 2 words. Thank you. I nodded once. That was the last time I saw her. The shelter kept the grill going until nightfall. After the last plate was served, I cleaned the tools, wrapped up the bones, folded the apron, and before I left, I stood beneath the mounted tongs and whispered, "You did your job." Then I turned, walked into the night. No regrets. No fire left to burn. Only embers. The camera lingers on the tongs framed in oak. Smoke curling behind them, a plaque gleaming in the firelight as quiet voices rise like ghosts. If you stayed until the final ember, tell me, what did the tongs mean to you? Comment below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.